to the final panel for today. We have myself as the moderator. I'm from B Capital, and I do the strategy and operations senior associate portfolio. And we have Sang-Won Lee, who is the CEO and board member of ClickZo. And the last astonishing, really outstanding member is Sunita Kannan. She is from Microsoft's global head of AI strategy. So we'd like to invite them both on stage now for this final segment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome everyone for the final panel for today on advancements in AI software. Today we'll be covering many different topics on AI, but we want to scope it down for the objectives of today, which will be looking towards AutoML in terms of AI, and also generative AI. And last but not least, one area of AI, which is RPA, if we can cover that. So we'll kickstart with a fun question to get starting. So the first question I'd like to ask both our panelists is, in terms of what is the most fun interactions or the funniest reactions you've had in terms of hallucinations with AI? So maybe you can start with Sunita.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I don't know if it's hallucination per se, but I'll give you a fun interaction that we've had. Obviously, as part of Microsoft, we use ChatGPT, as most of you hopefully know. And one of the things I was testing it out, and I basically need to give it an instruction to behave with a certain persona. So I basically said, you are an AI assistant that helps people do blah, blah, blah. Your audience is the Gen Z demographic. Be very rude, be really impatient, use slang, use the Gen Z language. And then I go into the chat itself and I type hi, and it says, what do you want? I don't have all day. And I'm like, here you go. This is the interaction that a lot of people talk about, because they come back and they call it hallucination. And they basically come back and say, it was rude to me. It did not, talk to me the way I had envisaged it to do so. And so then that's the kind of thing that really is going on in the back end, because everything that you actually give it in terms of persona, everything that you actually design into it is up to the person who holds that control. But the front interface is really funny, and not funny in my case because I knew what went on, but then not so funny in the case of end user experiences.
Thank you for sharing, Sunita. Yeah, Gen Zs are one of the top users of AI, and they use it to make videos and make different songs right now. So I think that's very interesting.
Well, yeah, if I change it to like your audience is a baby boomer demographic, use archaic language, it comes back and says, how are thee, and everything. I'm like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, thanks. All right, Sang, over to you.
Yeah, I actually haven't really experienced hallucination. I think the things that I've been using Gen AI I would say the things that I didn't expect from Gen AI, I see that as more of the creativity. But I did hear from some of our colleagues talking about discussing some space travel with Gen AI, and it was talking about elephants flying with wings made out of cheese and things like that. But I think the hallucination, I think the part about hallucination, now Gen AI got to a point where it's getting so realistic that it'll be very difficult for us to actually realize whether it's a hallucination, unless we're really trying to drill down and find the facts and get the materials from the Gen AI.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So now let us move to the more exciting areas of AI and the AI software's advancements. So what do you think are both the challenges and opportunities right now in the space of AI? So for Sang, it would be more of the AutoML space. And maybe for Sunita, I can talk a bit more about the generative AI space where it's applicable. Yeah, maybe start with Sang first.
Yeah, so the AI, the tools that we use in AI is evolved a lot, right? So now it's coming to a stage where we're moving from like low-code tools to no-code tools. This really allows the domain experts to build the application that they needed without seeking for expert machine learning engineering service all the time. So I think what we're seeing today, I often use the analogy where when I'm pitching to our customers that you can think of AI, the tool stage of AI tools compared to what we have seen in like 1400s with printing press. Because the printing press was, it obviously revolutionized how we, read materials and print, make books. But then it was still a pretty difficult tool to work with. You needed expert engineers or printing press operators working for weeks and weeks to print, one book. But now with Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, we can come up with a presentation and something that's a really high level quality within an hour. I think on the AI side, the tool evolution of tool is we're at that stage where previously we were using the tools that was much like expert only heavy code tool. Now there are tools that's no code, and you can simply download and use just like a Adobe Photoshop.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's the movement towards, last time it was low code and now it's no code. So I wonder what's the next stage of it. It will be for especially the auto ML space. Maybe Sunita, you want to share a bit more about that space?
Yeah, I think that we actually have tools for everything out there, right? So whether it's AutoML, we have it as part of our Azure Machine Learning platform.
Yep.
So that is a capability that does exist from an ML perspective. And I'm so glad you're talking about ML because I feel like people have just forgotten machine learning in this day and age of Gen AI. But in the generative AI space, like there's a lot happening, obviously as well, right? To the point that Sang made about, Word and PowerPoint just being really easy tools to now start using with something like Copilot built into it, that everyone can actually just put in a text prompt that says, build me a slide on, the 101 of machine learning, for instance, and would come back and build a really nice, good enough slide that you can go and edit and, reform and refine and whatever else. We also have, in terms of the technology itself, we stay true to the developer environment as well as to the, the low code, no code environment. So we have tools within Microsoft that caters for both sets of people. So if you are a developer-heavy environment, we have, tools that actually, go between a studio experience and, a code experience and back and forth. And then if you are more focused on low code and no code, we have tools and technology that if you have no coding experience or less coding experience, you can easily enable and get it up and running in Gen AI. So all that is there. I think the concept of Gen AI is that it's basically to enable people of all skill levels to use AI in some shape or form. Obviously, there are a lot of risks that would come with that, and we will probably talk about that later. But that is the intent. The intent is that now everyone is talking about AI. And I've been in the AI field for over 15 years, and I can tell you that I've never heard so many people talking about AI all around me as I had these last 2 years. That even my mom to my niece, they're all like, everyone's like, oh, AI. I'm like, okay, AI it is. So it's very much a prevalent kind of topic now. I think what needs to be emphasized more is what are the pitfalls and what are the risks that you need to be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. We'll be covering some sections on responsible AI at the final segment of this panel.
Yeah.
So I just want to dive a bit deeper into at your both different firms. What do you think is the greatest challenge right now because advancements are moving so fast in AI software? So as you mentioned, it's becoming democratized in a sense. Everything is AI. So I just want to start with first, Sunita. What is the greatest challenge right now in your role at Microsoft, and then to Sang at Calypso as well?
Keeping up with everything that's happening, I think every day I wake up. I work night shift because I'm US based. So every day I'm throughout the night there's things happening, and then I take a nap for 3-4 hours in the evening. By the time I wake up, I'm like, oh my God, something new has happened. I'm like, it's crazy how quickly things are evolving. To the point that I think the biggest challenge is getting that bit of, getting used to something for long enough for us to actually start implementing it, for us to actually start, getting a habit of it before something new comes on. I think that is the biggest challenge right now. I think people are just in this, AI heavy kind of drained phase where things are progressing so quickly that it's hard to keep up with all of those new things. And for me, that is part of my job, is to make sure that our Microsoft, environment, our entire organization, as well as our customers, are aware of the things that are happening at the rapid rate that they are happening, to keep them abreast of what's happening, and to make sure that we have time to actually test things out, implement it, get the reviews, get the feedback, and then go into that cycle. It's just that the whole agile methodology has just shrunk like that. So it's like super agile methodology now.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I really enjoyed like the thought put into the Microsoft AI roadmap strategy for not just Microsoft but other firms to not just think about technology but the people.
Correct.
So thanks for sharing about that.
Absolutely.
Sang, on to you. I think so.
Yeah, for us, I think there's definitely a lot of demands and requests coming from market, and we mainly focus on handling sensor data, building AI models that can run on the very small microcontrollers. And there's a lot of different applications in different industries. But we provide a SaaS tool that would allow domain experts to build AI models without writing code. But each domain has different requirements, and it's very difficult to build a generic tool that can cover everything. So there's certainly a lot of effort going in there trying to build a automation tool that can be used in any kind of field of applications without needing much of customization. But for now, I think there's different AI companies serving different markets, and I think that's where we see the challenge is how do we actually build a even more scalable tool for different type of applications and markets. So I think it's just it always requires a lot of engineering efforts on when trying to build a tool that can serve mass market, and so we're working on it, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing so much, Sang. So just want to dive a bit deeper there. You mentioned tools, AI tools for clients, real applications. How does Clixo help? What are some ways that Clixo helps your clients move into AI, to scale AI?
Okay, yes. Clixo started as a machine learning application company in mobile space. So we're spun out of Carnegie Mellon University. I think there's a lot of Carnegie Mellon people here. And we started with this application called FingerSense. It's an AI machine learning application that allows conventional touchscreens to understand different type of input by looking at the vibration. And of course, all machine learning model had to run on a microcontroller level so that you don't create any latency or consume a lot of power. It was a very successful application, and we licensed to Huawei, and we were making a big splash in the market. But then obviously we all know what happened to Huawei. But I think the AI that we saw, or the challenges that we actually have to resolve while doing that commercialization of the application on smartphones is that building AI application, I think as long as you have like one smart engineer with the right tool, anybody can really build an application. But the big challenge is scaling, because especially when you're handling sensor data running on a very small microcontroller, because quality of AI model heavily depends on the quality of data, and quality of sensor data heavily depends on the environment. So every time there's a new environment, you have to re-optimize or collect new training data and re-optimize the model, and it's a very labor-intensive process. So we built an automated platform that would allow non-engineers to simply click a button to collect data and build a model themselves. And we built that tool into a serviceable platform, SaaS platform, so that other industries and applications can be built by domain experts. Because AI companies bring AI service or the tools, but we don't have the domain expertise to come up with the killer application that everybody's looking for. So oftentimes we get misinterpreted when we present ourselves to new customers. They all think that we're bringing something ready out of box, but that in the AI space that's very difficult unless you have domain experts working together. So our idea is we want to enable the domain experts so that they feel confident that they can come up with their applications themselves. They have the requirements. So it's easy for them to come up with that killer application idea as long as they have the right tool. They'll be able to do it themselves. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing on that. Yeah, it's nowadays a lot of companies thought themselves as out-of-box solutions, but in your case, you're flipping it the other way around and looking at how can you empower domain experts to build what's good for the business. Yeah. Thanks for sharing on that. So for Sunita, I'd like to ask. I'd like to just dive a bit more onto. You mentioned about everyone has to iterate much faster in a faster, agile manner, and how does cross teams work at Microsoft, and how do you solve for the speed that everything's moving while keeping everyone on board?
Yeah, good question. It's a gigantic organization. I'm sure he knows that. But we have the product teams, we have the engineering teams, we have the research teams, and we have our sales teams, we have our industry teams, so go-to-market teams, so like a lot of different personalities of teams which are around. That's what makes it different, right? Because to Sang's point, the biggest challenge is getting that domain expertise, that industry knowledge into a solution so that you can take it out of box. So because we have industry teams, because we have the domain knowledge within Microsoft itself, we bring that perspective in. So any kind of models that we need to fine tune for, domain-specific kind of out-of-box solutions, we are able to provide that. To be able to have that, industry agnostic kind of solutions, we have that too. So if someone wants to take it and then build it themselves, because people now, people really started getting fond of Gen AI models, LLM models, only because one of the biggest aspects was you don't need to train it as much with your internal data. So it's already pre-trained, you can get it in, you can almost start deploying it immediately. So the amount of fine-tuning or training the model is minimal to none. It depends on how advanced you want to be. So if, for example, we have that domain knowledge within Microsoft, we bring that in so that the amount of fine-tuning that's needed for the domain-specific implementation of AI just reduces by a lot. But that said, if people want to still train it on their company-specific data for some nuances that they need to bring into it, then they can do that as well. So we're giving that flexible kind of choice for people to do that. But again, the internal experience that we have with these industry teams, the domain teams, that really accounts for this stuff. We also have regular, the sales teams, the go-to-market teams, making sure that we get the customer feedback in as soon as possible. All of these different things help to actually shape these products up very quickly, as quickly as we can do. Being such a large organization, as quickly as we can do. And now actually way quicker than we used to be before, right? Because everything is moving so fast, we have to keep up with that as well. The product teams are very much aware of how things are continuously and quickly changing. So they are also very susceptible and very receptive to actually go in and make changes to the product very quickly as well. So I think it's the whole end-to-end, the feedback loop from customers through to the product engineering teams, getting that information out as quickly as possible. The go-to-market team basically being the bridge between the two, and the industry teams providing that expertise from within. All in all, that's how it works. Is it faster than before? Absolutely. Can it be faster? Absolutely, right? But we're also learning as we move along.
Yeah, definitely it's an iterative process that every company has to go through. And before we talk deeper onto the impacts of advancements in AI software, I just wanted to ask both of you from your perspective, what is one underrated driving force right now that no one's talking about, but in your opinion, it should be talked about? Maybe we can start with Sang.
I think the big driving force is because now people, got woke up and understands that they are capable of building the solutions that can help them to innovate their products. Previously, AI and machine learning is a space where people didn't really have much understanding or didn't really have the confidence to feel that they can do things on their own. Again, going back to our experience, when we first introduced the AI application, the machine learning application in the mobile space, we didn't even talk about how these things were working, how our solution was developed. We were mostly focusing on the application side so that people would actually people find more interesting in looking at the application rather than trying to understand what's really driving this application. But now, the AI is like the common term that AI ML is a common term that everybody uses. And one example of how industry is using AI and how well it's been perceived or received by even non-engineers is Procter & Gamble is one of our customer, and they actually went on a stage on one conference and talked about us, and we thought it was really interesting because Procter & Gamble, they have so many different products, so they have a lot of product managers, but they only have a small team of machine learning engineers and AI engineers. So product managers have all this new ideas and they want to apply AI in their products, but they had lack of resources to support all the product managers. So they're right now using the product management team is using our tool to build our own applications. So building things like something they like classification models or regression models that can run on shavers or the toothbrush and Swifers, and so it was amazing how the things that product managers can do with a tool like this is really changing the game and giving them more I guess freedom of coming up with new innovations.
Yeah, I look forward to this driving force in the near future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You asked me for one, I'm going to give you four. This is how I am. So the first one is probably going back to the idea of AI is not just equal to Gen AI. I think that people really need to go back to the basics of the other really, really core ingredients of AI, which are machine learning, deep learning, all of these things which have just been lost in transitioning over to Gen AI, because now everyone just thinks that, I can create this really cool like Instagram video using cool Gen AI text to video capability. That's AI. It's like, that's one part of AI. That's not everything in AI. And I think people need to combine the forces of Gen AI and machine learning to really bring together the advancements in AI. I think that part is number one. Number two is infrastructure, like GPUs. Like we need to have some serious conversations on GPUs and where is all this being built, because that is a really core component. Number three is data quality. Again, people usually think that just because it's a ready-made solution, data quality does not matter anymore. It's really funny because we have for example, in Microsoft, we have a Power BI Copilot. So every time I show that to a customer, it's like a Power BI tool, but then it's Copilot embedded into it. It's like the PowerPoint Copilot and the Word Copilot. So I can just put in a text prompt to say, give me a dashboard of blah, 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 and it would look into the metadata and give me that dashboard. But everyone's like, oh my God, that's so cool. What if my data was really bad? I'm like, well, this is a question that you should have been asking all along anyway, right? So again, that is the third one. And the fourth one is related to responsible AI. I get very scared when everyone thinks now that they're an AI expert. That really worries me. It's something for me where I'm like, oh my God, do you realize what you're saying and like how you're saying it? And these are the things that really worry me. It's such that people who think they are AI experts when they don't have the background or what wrong could happen with it, that's what's going to then spread more of the irresponsible implementation and behavior. So I think that continuous awareness and training and things need to be done, and people do need to realize that not everyone is an AI expert, and that's fine. No one is expected to, and not everyone's expected to be an AI expert. You have the domain knowledge, bring that in. You have the philosophical knowledge, bring that in. But everyone who says, oh, I know everything about AI, I'm like, no, hold on, stop it. Wait, these are things you need to know about it. So I think those are the four things that are underrated right now in the AI space, where we need to get more awareness and learning for people.
Yeah, that's really good sharing. Having four different areas that's unlooked, and hopefully in the future people look more at them and learn and improve the entire AI landscape. So I'd like to now segue into the impacts of and value of AI. How should companies think about the value that AI brings, and what are some impacts that both of you have seen in your role? So how do we measure the value of AI?
AI really brings huge innovation and improvements in cost saving in a lot of the operations. And I've seen companies that utilize AI, machine learning with sensors to improve their operation cost. It's, just to mention a specific example, we've been working with this elevator company. I won't name who, but elevator companies, 70% of their revenue comes from maintenance and service. So it's a classic, razor and razor blade business model. So I think literally you can probably get elevator for free because they're going to be making maintenance and service revenue for the next 30, 40 years whenever they sell elevators. So in order to improve their the profit margin, maintenance and service is really mostly the labor. So you have to save on the labor cost. So this elevator company, their goal is to save 1.8 days of unscheduled calls per elevator per year. Oh, well, they have 1.8 days of unscheduled calls. They wanted to reduce that down to 1 day. So they're saving 0.8 days of unscheduled calls per year. And most of the problem comes from the elevator door not operating properly. And there are symptoms that you can capture using a small vibration sensor and a small machine learning model just attached to the elevator door panel. By having that kind of small solution running on the elevator door panel, you can basically monitor the condition of the panel 24/7, 365 days a year. And by saving 0.8 days, this company manages 1 million elevators. So if you do the math, 0.8 days, the global average labor cost for maintenance service is around $30. So they're saving $196 million. And this is not even the number one elevator company in the world. The number one elevator company in the world, I think, is Otis. They manage 2 million elevators, and most of their elevators are operating in U.S. where the labor cost is $50. So now they're going, with a similar type of solution, they're going to save $500 million a year. So there are things where we can have immediate impact on this kind of type of operations. And if you think about how we use machines, every machine, including your car or a water pump at home, every machine requires maintenance and service. Right? So there's a lot of low-hanging fruits, oil and gas, typical manufacturing, and a lot of it that can be applied right away.
Thanks for sharing, Seng. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are three ways to really measure it, right? Like I think the first one is cost savings. Second one is productivity. How do you increase your productivity in the company? And the third is how do you increase your revenue or your sales? So if you think about it that way, usually when I talk with customers about machine learning, I'm like, it's a real game changer when it comes to how to increase your revenue. It's a very focused kind of field, predictive analytics and so on. With Gen AI, we've seen a lot more of the first two, right? So how do you actually, not saying that ML can't do the first one, but Gen AI mostly is used for how do you increase productivity in the company? How do you get more people to do things faster, quicker, easier? And again, I go back to our own example within Microsoft. The whole existence or the formation of Gen AI has really improved the way that we actually do things quickly. And I think that was the intent, that is the intent. So we can see a lot happening there. But cost savings as well, like think about it, I'm not talking about cutting people off the organization. That's not the intent of something like a Copilot, or else we would have called it autopilot or something. But I think the idea of Copilot is how do you get someone to work alongside you to do some of the tasks that you find probably, repetitive, mundane, or whatever, going back to RPA examples. And then you think more about, the thinking kind of role, the strategic role, and all of these things where humans are really good at doing. And this is what we should be focusing on. And again, that really helps with, how do you allocate your people better? We have an AI avatar as a service in Microsoft. And people are like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I'm like, it's very scary, I agree. And you need to use it in a responsible manner. But think about it in terms of people who have to work 24 hours a day in a call center, or like any kind of jobs which require 24 hours of interaction. You can actually use an avatar to cater for a few of those hours and then sort of give that person mental and emotional sort of downtime so that they can recover and come back the next day afresh. Things like that, where humanity meets AI, is where I think a lot of things should be the focus for AI, where it's being used right now, where some of the, where we've actually seen it come out in terms of, drivers of understanding whether it's being used in the right manner, successful implementation. Those are the three pillars that I would classify them into.
Thanks for the classification. That segues to our last area of responsible AI, and you mentioned about cost savings, and it's always in the media on like how some companies, they say AI augments them, and then they do a 50% layoff and say that AI is going to replace these jobs.
Yes.
So just in brief, just want to hear from Sundhia's point of view, like, and Seng's point of view, like what is responsible AI in brief? Why is it important?
In brief?
In brief, yeah. We can dive deeper after.
So every company has different kind of principles that they look at for responsible AI. In Microsoft, we have 6 principles. The usual ones, I think, like inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, privacy, security, blah, blah. So there's all of these different principles. Now, everyone talks these principles, which is great, which is really the aspect of the foundation of responsible AI. Like, how do you make sure that it's not just a black box AI? How do you include transparency in what's happening within it, especially for your auditors, for some of your customers who want to know, why was I, shortchanged in that particular outcome? I need to be treated the same way as this person is. What did that model do? People are starting to question it, which is great, but you need to have answers for those questions. Things like accountability, again, back to the point of you can't just let an AI make some decisions, especially for critical system scenarios. Or like, in healthcare, when someone tells me, we have this AI robot or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, please make sure that you have a human making that end decision. Although I love AI and I'm in the field, that's not something I would encourage. Same with airlines. So many of our customers are airline companies. And when they say like route optimization, I'm like, please tell me you have a human there to make that final decision, because I do not want that AI to decide what the best route is. It's great, it's doing that, it's helping me, but not the way to do it. So things like that, where these are the responsible AI principles. Again, every company who is doing something in AI should or would have it. But in Microsoft, I'm really proud to talk about this, because in Microsoft, we have actually brought those principles into tools and technology. So, for example, with the Copilot and the prompts that you're putting in, it would actually block me from generating anything, or even like going into the model itself if I use any kind of harmful language, violent language, sexual language, things like that, where you do not want this kind of speak to go into the model. It automatically filters that out. That's called our content filtering capability. So, for example, I was demoing to an insurance company, and one of the things I asked the ChatGPT from Microsoft was, can you tell me what the fatality rate was in 2019? It basically blocked me, and it said, that sounds like a very harmful usage of language, so I'm not going to give you the answer to that. So I can go back into the back end and allow that threshold to let that pass through and go back and repeat it, and now it would let me. So imagine like police companies, defense companies who need this information to pass through to be able to understand the pattern of the calls coming in or whatever coming in. You can set that threshold to be lower, that you can allow more in. And for others who are like insurance companies, like typical retail companies, you do not want that harmful language to come through. So like we also give a demo, and there was a recent demo as well. If I say, can you recommend me an axe to cut a tree, it would tell me what that product is. If I say, can you recommend me an axe to kill a person, it would block me, and it would say that that's harmful language. So these are like principles that we have actually founded into the tools. They're just some examples, and there are new ones coming out as well, where it's not just talking the talk, it's actually embedding it into the implementation itself.
Yeah, I saw
that was not a brief definition of responsible AI. There you go.
Yeah, but thanks for sharing. I saw that Azure AI services, you can actually put the threshold on acceptance on like sexual violence, harassment, and all of that. So yeah, thanks for showing it in play. Sang, how about you?
Yeah, I think there should be a good governance, and people should really get together and talk about this in more in depth. But yeah, for me, I think it's going to be very difficult to control. The human beings are not really good at, following all the rules, and there will always be somewhere, people exploiting, the loopholes and coming up with, different type of AIs that we may not be so fond about. I think there's definitely some work to be done there. I'm not the expert in that space. And we do, internally at our company, we do, talk about this often and try to make sure that our tool is not being used by, those people that may not use this in the right way. So we do have a system to filter and make sure that it's not getting in the hands of wrong people. But yeah, it's a scary thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely scary when it's tools that are put in the wrong hands as well. So one final question for me on responsible AI before we open to the audience for Q&A is, what is the greatest challenge right now in ensuring that your technology is being used in a responsible and beneficial manner?
Well, the greatest challenge when running SaaS business is that you don't know who's going to be signing up and using the tool. So there's a lot. People can really, disguise themselves as somebody else and then sign up with a different identity, and that's the part where we're spending the efforts and energy and cost in trying to filter and find the right way to provide our tool to the right people, and that's hopefully. For us, we're doing the operation side. So I mainly looking at the whole operation of our business, and sometimes I feel like we're spending too much money on the things that that's hopefully if everybody's kind and honest, and we don't have to spend that money, but we don't know whether other people will think like us. So that's the big challenge. I'm hoping that there will be a different type of way using again another AI technology to automate those kind of the filtering and building more better protection for the services, other AI services.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we're lucky that way because all our customers are on Azure. So that tenancy and that the privacy is still maintained in terms of the data, the models, what they're using it for. We don't have full visibility to what they're doing. That's not the intent either. But at least when they sign up for something like this, we ask them, what is the intent that you're using it for? And there is a level of trust and everything. And we have our account teams who are regularly in contact with the customers to understand what's happening on that front. But I think more so than anything else for me, it's the framework that the company is putting in place, as in our customers are putting in place. I think one of the points that you mentioned earlier was the AI governance. Now, it's really funny because one of my previous companies, we actually released a survey in which we asked customers, do you have an AI governance framework or like an AI governance body in your company? And about 80% of the folks came back and said, yes, we do. And when we dug deeper, we found out that what they meant by AI governance was data governance. And we were like, no, they're two different things. And so it's the aspect of, what is an AI governance body in a company? Like which kinds of people are you going to bring into that body? How are you actually going to determine, what is the kind of, use cases that you want to prioritize in the company, centrally manage? All of these things are what basically contributes to the intent of where things are going in the company. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is we obviously want, we are releasing new things very, very often. But again, things are moving so quickly that we need to keep up with that. I think that is another big challenge in our responsible AI as well. Like we just released a groundedness detection capability, which is how do you actually measure the amount of hallucination that the model is exhibiting. Would we have thought about it 1.5 years ago? No. Would we have thought about it 1 year ago? We didn't have it then. It's a very new feature, but then it's already started happening before then. So we are trying to keep up with the wrong things that are happening by producing things that can counter that. So I think those are the two biggest challenges for us.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a rat race to catch all the errors as they happen. So now I'd like to open the floor to the audience for Q&A. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand and the mic will go to you.
Could you please share from your vantage point of how and where enterprises are deploying Gen AI? What are the use cases and how are enterprises looking at it? Especially, I'm also interested on B2B SaaS because in Asia, decision making can be longer cycle, and we have skilled labor which is readily available. It is, and businesses might not want to disrupt their old processes. So that is something I really would appreciate if you could both share your thoughts, please.
Okay. We don't actually do Gen AI, so it'll be difficult for me to talk about Gen AI. We do machine learning for edge, handling sensor data. So our tool is more geared towards building very specific applications utilizing sensors. So there's a lot of sensors out there. So there's I think over 1 trillion sensors that's already been deployed in the field, and we build AI, or we build a tool that allows you to build AI models that can run on the sensor driver chip. So sensors need a driver chip, typically a small microcontroller with Cortex M0 or M4. Now the technology has evolved so much that you can actually build AI models or machine learning models that can run on those driver chips, existing driver chips. So the sensors can now think for itself. So you don't have to worry about sending raw data to cloud, and you don't have to worry about the data privacy and things like that. And rather, you just have the sensors to interpret its own data, and then it can provide the answers to you. And the way I explain to our customers in terms of like applications, because sometimes like when we talk to customers, they ask me like, where can I actually use AI in my field, right? Yeah. And I may not have the domain expertise in your field to give you the right type of idea, but typically what I would tell them is that, in order to do like brainstorming for ideas, it's a simple way to think about how can I get benefit from AI is anything that human can do with 5 natural senses. Sensor and machine learning or AI can do better with better consistency, and it can run without, getting tired. So you can just think of it as like, what am I actually doing? Like, what's my daily task? And how am I, getting the information using my 5 natural senses? And can I actually build an AI to do this for me instead of me doing it all the time? So, there could obviously, with that, there's unlimited ideas that you'll probably come up with for your, field of application. Yeah.
I have to agree. Like whenever someone comes to me and says, we want to do something in AI, I'm like, what do you want to do? And then they're like, something. I'm like, you need to tell me what your biggest problem areas are, or where you're spending most amount of time, effort, money, whatever. Something to do with your strategy. Like, the company strategy for some of our customers in retail happen to be, how do we know where to expand the next 3 stores so that, can AI help with that? I'm like, absolutely. Machine learning can definitely help with that. We need a ton of data. Like, let's work with you on getting that data in. But that either it's a top-down strategic kind of view to say that this is what we want to do as next steps in the company, or we want to actually look at an operational view, or this is the most amount of time we're spending with this particular function. Again, I'm going to pick on the infamous use case of call centers, right? Like, call centers are a real big pain point right now, all across like the world, but Asia is like the hot zone of that right now. Like, how do we make sure that we get you what you need to actually, make sure that AI helps you in call center scenarios? There are tons of different solutions out there for that. So I think it's, to Sang's point, I completely agree. It's analyzing where are you spending most time, cost. Are you looking at cost efficient methods? Are you looking at how to increase productivity in your team? Are you looking at a strategic view or operational view of where to expand or how to expand? Accordingly, AI, different parts of AI would basically come in to help. So as I said, Gen AI mainly for most of productivity and cost saving kind of aspects. If you pair that with something like machine learning, your solutions are like boundless, and it gets really interesting then. So if I know your industry, I would list out all the use cases for you. But I think that's where typically I would encourage most customers to think about. Obviously, we can share back to say that customer in your industry is using it in these ways. But then we have like a whole, booklet of, I don't know what it's called now. But I would start with, tell me a little bit about your company. Like, where are your focus areas? What do you want to do? And then accordingly form that strategy.
Thank you.
So we have time for one last question. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question to Mr. Lee. I found your example on the elevator very, very important. And I just wanted to understand when you have a product like that, where you kind of looking at a sensor, which brings down the cost of a company by $200 million. And probably what I wanted to understand was, how do you price such a product? Like, in a sense, your cost of doing that is probably like on an incremental basis, you're spending $5 million for research and getting it into place. You're saving $200 million, your cost is $5 million. How do you price this product?
Yeah, that's like, there's a whole field of research for IP licensing pricing. And I don't think but in reality, when you actually run the business and talk to customers, there's really no right formula. I went to business school, UC Berkeley, and I actually went back to the school and asked one of the professor, but the professor was actually asking me this question because he wanted to know, what's really happening in the real world environment. So, obviously we all want to be fair and say, hey, if there's pie on the table, let's share half, right? But then in reality, it really doesn't work that way. Like when you're talking to a large conglomerates, like I won't name who, but like big conglomerates on building, let's say licensing something to consumer insurance company that makes $500 billion, right? We don't have the same type of negotiation power as they do, and the tactics that they've been building up for the past 20, 30 years, that they know how to really squeeze everything from the suppliers, right? So I think the things that you can do in terms of coming up with the right type of pricing is, yes, you do have some ways to understand what type of value that you're creating. If it's like a public company, like for example, an elevator company, they have they release IR materials, and in those materials, there's a lot of things about where they're spending money, how much they're spending, and so on. And with that information, we can devise our own pricing strategy. But this is something that you have to customize for every customer. So it does take a lot of effort. I think that's probably one of the Gen AI applications that somebody will come up with, how we can price it right for each different customer. Typically on SaaS side, we refer to other companies like benchmarking other services and understanding what are the comparable price out there and making sure that we are not missing out on anything. All right, so I wish I have like one formula that I can pass to you, but I don't think the world works that way right now.
Yeah, thanks for the answer on elevators. So as the last part of this panel, I'd just like to do a wrap up. What do you envision the next 5-10 years in the AI software space for both Microsoft and Clixo?
I think it's just continuous amount of availability of different kinds of models. Like we have the partnership with OpenAI to bring those models into Azure and release it from Azure itself. But then we also have a lot of other open source models that we have brought in, like Llama and Mistral and others as well. And then we have also produced our own SLM, so small language models within Microsoft that we have released recently as well. So there's a lot happening. I think it's continuous guidance on when typically one would use the other, and then giving the freedom for customers to be able to try out these and see which one works best for them depending on the use case and what they're trying to use it for. Those are one set of things. The other set of things are obviously responsible AI. Like I cannot stress the amount of work and the importance of this in this day and age and where things are going right now. I think those are the main areas that the two main areas that I would say that one is continuously evolving. We are doing a lot more. more awareness, more guidance. And the second one is more tools, more technology, more safety measures to make sure that when people use it, they use it in the right manner as much as possible.
What we do at machine learning side, I think this morning Professor Chen was mostly explaining how X equals Y and that formula that we're labeling the data, and that with that labeled data, machine learning builds the models. And in terms of the software tools, it's been going from low code to no code, and we also think about what would be like next. I think the easy way to think about what would come in the future is that the way that we train machine learning model is no different from how we educate our children, right? So, when you have like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old at home, you'll probably know that they'll typically like hear something or see something for the first time, then ask you like, "Hey, Dad, what was that?" And then you say, "Oh, there was a sound of a microwave running." Then that's the label that I gave. And then she has the data. So next time the microwave is running, that she knows that, okay, that's a microwave. I think it will come to a stage where training machine learning models will be as simple as that, right? That will be able to just talk in natural language to train things. And that could be application that we just talked about, like elevator, for example. You may not even need a no-code tool. You can just go there and stick a sensor and talk to it and say, "Hey, when you hear this noise, that means the elevator door is tilted," and then it will be able to register and build a model, right? So I think we'll soon see the environment where everybody will be able to just provide their thoughts, requirements, and label, and machine learning will be the tool will be able to build a solution for you.
All right, thank you. Thank you both for sharing. Thank you, Sang. Thank you, Sunita. And thank you, everyone, for your participation in the Q&A and listening in to these insights on the advancements in AI software. And that's all the time for today. So I'd like to thank both guests. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to invite our partners at TDK Ventures on stage, Karim, to give the closing remarks before we go for lunch. Yeah, Karim, please.
Thank you. I guess I don't feel like a movie star. They didn't do the clicker for me, so. Listen, I just have a few things to say, and I'm not going to take a lot of time. For me, this has been a tremendous success. Tremendous success because when I walked into the ballroom yesterday versus where we are today, I have some new ideas, new thoughts, new insights that I didn't know before. So I hope that we were able to successfully create the same impression, the same thoughts for you when you walked in yesterday versus today. You learned some new things that maybe you didn't know about. Hopefully you met some new people. Hopefully you can develop into lasting relationships that are going to be beneficial to you. The last thing I don't want to forget to say is, for all of our speakers that have come from near and from far, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your insights and sharing your updates. This event would not have happened without your contributions. For our guests that are here, really appreciate you spending the time and I know everybody's super busy, and spending the time with us. For many of you that have come yesterday and also today, it's really, really appreciated that you're able to do so. And of course, it goes without saying that if it weren't for the partnership with B Capital, we wouldn't have been able to pull this together. So thank you so much to the B Capital team for doing this. There's a bunch of people that are sort of behind the scenes also doing a lot of the work to pull this event together. So thank you to all of these people that have helped me in pulling this together. And thank you so much for all your participations and contributions. And I'm really looking forward to the next time we do something together in Singapore. Thank you so much.